Hi everybody, Rabbi Denise here. I hope everybody is well. Thank you for joining me. This is a talk because lately I've been doing some Shabbat talks online. So as we move into the holiday of Shabbat, this is a talk for that. It's also in reference to the holiday Tisha B'Av, which starts tomorrow. And Tisha B'Av, many of you might not know about. Lots and lots of Jews don't really celebrate it. It's a day of mourning. It commemorates a few different destructions or catastrophic events in the history of Judaism and the Jewish people, most notably the two destructions of the temple in Jerusalem, also the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt. So that's what traditionally the holiday originated to mark, but in contemporary times we also use it as an opportunity to do Holocaust remembrance, and there have been some other things that get added to the remembrances in the mourning that Tisha B'Av brings. For lots of us as Jews, like I said, we don't really know very much about that holiday, and maybe we haven't celebrated it before. But this year, I think it's getting a little bit more interest in the non-Orthodox or non-religious Jewish world, and that's partly because of what's been going on, politically, and also relating to the state of Israel. So many of you may know, some of you may not know, that's just fine, that Israel just passed a law. It was before the Knesset as the nation state bill. It really creates some enshrined inequality in the country. Arabic has been downgraded as a national language. There are lots and lots of things about this that are really horrific to Jews who want Israel to be a democratic society and a fair society. In addition to that, you may have seen that there's a rabbi from the conservative movement in Israel who was arrested for officiating a wedding that was deemed not kosher by the Orthodox rabbinate in Israel. So these are some of the things that have been going on in Israel. And of course, here in North America, we're also seeing lots of things happening that we find to be evidence of serious destruction, whether it's what's happening with Trump in the US or whether it's continued racism, the treatment of Indigenous people. I've been very active about what's happening in my province, Ontario, about, destroying a really wonderful sex ed curriculum, which I think is absolutely essential to keeping students safe. So there are all of these destructions wherever we are, and this sense, I think, of decimation, that it's very hard to build something. It's very easy to destroy it. And so many of us are feeling that, the effects of that destruction and the decimation. Tisha B'Av is an opportunity for some mourning around that, and it's also an opportunity to determine how we want to respond. And so I spoke last week in my Shabbat talk about this idea. So it says in the Talmud that the temple was destroyed because people were hating, that the Jews were hated, and there was what they call this baseless hatred, this sinat chinam. And so Jews have responded by saying what we need in this month, this is the Jewish month of Av. So what the Jewish month of Av should bring is this absolute baseless love, this audacious love, the sense that we just have to freely love your neighbor, love the stranger, even love the enemy, which can sometimes be difficult to do. And so instead of the sinat chinam, we have ahavat chinam, which is just the opposite, which baseless love. And so I spoke about that last week, and I want to apply that to the lessons of Tisha B'Av specifically, because I think that as we move from that idea of hate to that idea of love, we can do the same thing with the idea of moving from destruction into a sense of construction, moving from decimation to a sense of creation. How do we change some of what's going on and our experience of what's going on and make it something that's actually much more, that works for us and allows for healing? I don't think it's useful. Just like, with any kind of mourning, we need the opportunity to grieve. That's healthy. That's right. But to stay in the grief forever is not healthy. There does need to be a moment, and it takes different time for different people. There are phases of grief, and we all do it differently in our own way. But ultimately, we need to move through it. And the way I do it when I officiate a funeral, for example, is I say, look at the person who has passed away. What lessons do they offer? What is their legacy? And then act on that. Be the person that they would want us to be. Take from the best of their personality and incorporate it into who we are. And so I think that we do the same in Jewish life, whether it's Israel or whether it's here, because although that happened in Israel where the conservative rabbi was arrested, I'm part of a group of Jews here who are intermarried. I'm intermarried myself as a rabbi, I believe the only one in Canada, and there aren't that many of us even worldwide. Although in my movement, certainly that hasn't been so trafe, that hasn't been so bad. A lot of the rabbis I work with in the humanistic Jewish movement are in fact intermarried. And so not only are some of us intermarried ourselves, but we've officiated thousands of intermarriage ceremonies. And this to me is the perfect example of looking at these destructive forces. So people marry each other. They love each other. They want to commit to each other. They want to bring their families together and join them. And then those families sometimes are great and sometimes those families are not great. And we know stories of families who haven't attended weddings, who have been absolutely horrible to their child or to the partner of their child. And so this is that kind of destruction. And again, we have that parallel between the kind of destructive impulse and the impulse to love. And intermarriage is only one of those things where I think that we can see in Jewish life today, there are some destructive forces. There's a huge destructive force where Jews judge other Jews for not doing it right, for not celebrating or praying or following the laws or the rituals or whatever it is in the way that either the Orthodox do it or the way that the person who's doing the judging does it. And sometimes that's generational and sometimes that's intra-community. So the people I serve are people who are largely non-traditional. That doesn't mean they're not looking for Jewish connection. They are. Most of the people I work with are deeply connected to their Judaism and they are delighted to learn more about Jewish history and culture and they want a community to connect with and all of those kinds of things. It doesn't mean that they want to go to traditional prayer services and, necessarily keep kosher or follow the laws of Shabbat or things like this. The destructive tendency has been to say, then you're not a real Jew. The constructive tendency in response to that, the creative tendency, is to create awesome ways of being Jewish and frankly not worry about it. Like to me, I think we've moved past it. I think there was a time when Jews who were told you're not a real Jew would internalize that and feel like, oh, then I shouldn't be Jewish at all. Or we were told, well, if you're going to intermarry, you're marrying out. So there's no more place in Judaism for you. And so people left. Why wouldn't they leave? And now they say, please, most of my friends are intermarried, not in all cases. It's true for me though. Lots of people are intermarried and doing really cool Jewish stuff in their families and their communities. There's absolutely no contradiction there. And so I think we've moved on from some of that. And I think in the Jewish world, certainly in North America, we're creating some really fascinating, creative and constructive communities and approaches to being Jewish. So I really like the podcast Judaism Unbound, and there are others that talk about people who are doing really cool stuff in Jewish life. There's something called the Open Door Project, DOR, that fosters cool things that different rabbis or Jewish professionals are leading in the community. I'm part of a group called Rabbis Without Borders that also, this is the thing, the rabbinic colleagues I have both within my movement and within spaces like Rabbis Without Borders are inspiring and dynamic and doing so much great stuff. And I think it's such a contrast to those destructive impulses in Jewish life. Those destructive impulses come from somewhere. So just like on Tisha B'Av, we commemorate the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, which was absolutely disastrous. The only way you could be part of this religion or this people was if you made sacrifices at the central temple. So if you lose the temple, then you lose your entire culture, community, and identity. This is not nothing, I understand. The response to that was to create something new. We have rabbinic Judaism. We are able to practice Jewish law, ritual, custom wherever we are in the world. We move from one central temple to a structure where you can be in community anywhere. You can find 10 people. And so it was a huge change. And what a brilliant, creative, constructive response to this destruction and decimation. And to me, we're in a similar moment now. So I serve a congregation. It's called the Orenu Congregation for Humanistic Judaism. I love my community. I love the people in it. I love the way we do Jewish. I'm really committed to that. And I really do believe there's a place for congregational life in the lives of a lot of us Jews, myself included. I also know that there are other ways to engage with being Jewish that are dynamic and awesome. And there's things going on outside the congregational structure that are equally exciting and to some people more exciting. There are just some people who have no interest in coming into a congregational communal setting, even if it's one like mine where we're not doing prayer and we're doing all this human and earth-centered stuff and it feels really affirming. That's, if they don't want to come, they don't want to come. And my goal lately has been thinking about what is the creative response to that. In the Jewish world right now, there's this real sense of this imminent destruction. Like, people aren't coming to synagogue anymore. How are people going to stay Jewish? And then there are so many creative responses, as I said, how people are staying Jewish, are doing meaningful Judaism in their lives. And I want to be a part of that trend. So as part of my work, again, I'm continuing to serve my congregation. I'm also launching something called secularsynagogue.com, and it's an online community for people who want to do Jewish a little bit differently. I serve people who are secular or cultural Jews, spiritual, not religious, looking for a way to have what I think is the best of Judaism. And to me, the Coles Notes version of that is social justice work. I think that's absolutely the greatest lesson from Jewish text, Jewish culture, Jewish history, and Jewish religion is to treat other people the way you would want to be treated and do good in the world, increase justice in the world. That's the takeaway from Judaism for me. And so I want to help people do that and use Judaism to help bolster those efforts. I think it's about personal betterment and fulfillment, including learning, including growth, including thinking about who you want to be in the world. And I do think it's about community, but I think the way we do community is changing a bit. So secularsynagogue.com is going to be online. You have access to a website where you'll have resources like throwing your own Shabbat parties and dinners in a DIY style for people who want blessings that aren't traditional. I'll also include some traditional blessings if people find value in saying them. So you'll have access to resources like that, resources for preparing for the high holidays. I'm working on one now called Get Clear on Your Jewish Year, which will be coming out a little bit closer to the Jewish New Year, which happens in September, and lots more resources. It will also give you access to a Facebook group where we'll be interacting all the time, doing learning together, whether it's Jewish learning like Torah study, or whether it's, not from particularly Jewish sources, but things that might inspire us in all different kinds of ways, different kinds of wisdom and literature and quotes and all different kinds of stuff. There's going to be challenges in that group, ways of making Judaism meaningful for you, ways of doing mitzvah work or, social justice work wherever you are. So I'm pretty jazzed about it. And our link for it is live right now. So it's secularsynagogue.com. I'd love if you'd check it out and get on the mailing list so you can find out more as we prepare to launch this September. If anybody has any questions for me, reach out anytime. Of course, you can either leave a comment here or you can get in touch with me directly by private message or by email. And my information is everywhere if you click the link, so I should be pretty easy to find. And I suppose I'll leave you with this idea that Tisha B'Av inspires in me, that we sometimes experience destruction and decimation. How do we move into construction and creating something that will work for us? So think about something that's going on in your life that feels destructive or feels really difficult, and what can you do to apply a creative solution to move through it in a meaningful and productive way. And I'd love to hear from you if you're doing that. So thank